This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
This is Capital Connection. Fridays during the Noon Report, we give you direct connection to all that's happening in Albany and Harrisburg with the experts on the issues at the state capitals. They are, as always, Michael Geer with the Pennsylvania Family Institute and Jason McGuire at New York Families. Well, gentlemen, the people have spoken. The results are in. The dust has settled on Election Day 2025. A lot of places to go here, Jason, but I want to begin with that big mayoral contest in New York City. How does a guy with Zohran Mamdani's credentials get to be the mayor of New York City? And a follow-up to that is, what does that portend when it comes to the 2026 midterms?
Well, ideological differences aside, let me speak to the strengths of the Zohran Mamdani campaign. For one, he energized many new voters. Over 2 million people turned out to vote in this election. That is a number that New York City had not seen since 1969. So he brought people into this race that were not voting. He's bringing a new generation in. He always smiled. He carried himself with optimism and hope. And unfortunately, I think we live in a day today in which people will choose rhetoric over results. Much of what he has said he can accomplish in his term, he will not be able to do, at least not to the level that he sold during the campaign. But people heard the rhetoric, and they opted for that over the results.
Yeah.
So that's how we get socialism in New York City.
Yeah. There was a poll out recently, Jay, a quick follow-up, and then we'll go to Michael. 66% of Democrats think socialism is a perfectly acceptable alternative to capitalism. Will this message of socialism catch on?
Well, I think it obviously already is. I mean, we're seeing it in the trends. We're seeing it among young people today. And there are some real concerns there. When we talk about affordability, the ability to buy a home, the American dream, in many ways does seem to be slipping away from a younger generation as they watch inflation, as they watch so many things with student debt and other issues that the new Democrats are speaking to. Yeah. And that is having an effect on those younger voters.
Yeah, Michael, I know you're upset about the retention elections with those 3 liberal Supreme Court justices. An uphill battle all the way. Maybe the margin of victory is what's disappointing people who wanted to see those judges tossed. It looks like about a 2-1 margin. They will keep their jobs. Your thoughts overall on the big vote there Tuesday night?
Well, as you mentioned, as significant as the implications were in this retention vote on issues like abortion, redistricting, and election integrity, a no vote on a Supreme Court retention election, a successful no vote, has only happened once in Pennsylvania history. So it was a tall order in the first place. But the second thing is big money came into the race late in the game with a reported more than $20 million being spent on the race, most of it from Democrats on the yes side. Planned Parenthood weighed in with their money and their endorsement. Lastly, there's the low voter turnout in these odd-year elections, but more turnout in the big cities because of the mayoral races and DA races, which also benefited the Democrat justices in their retention vote.
Yeah, so much of what you fight for, Michael, is parental rights and education. The school board votes, I know there's a lot of them, but overall, when you look across the Commonwealth, were you satisfied with those votes on Tuesday?
Well, I guess I would say some good, some bad. There are 500 school districts in the Commonwealth, so it's hard to sum it up simply across the board. In the races that we were watching closely, we were pleased for the most part with many of the results. But given that on Election Day, many public schools, especially in the major metro areas, were closed for the day, teachers and school employees had the day off, and the teachers' union virtually always backed the leftist candidates. So it can be tough in certain areas for sensible conservatives to get their message and the voters out on their behalf.
Jason, was this a referendum on the Trump presidency? I know his approval rating is underwater, and especially you look at those results out of New Jersey, not so much Virginia, because I think a lot of folks were expecting that one, but the margin of victory in New Jersey was telling. How much did Trump fatigue have on this race?
I think there certainly was some impact with the Trump fatigue, as you call it, was in his last election results. But I'll go further than that. I think it is more the fact that President Trump was not on the ballot that failed to energize Republican voters. So while the Trump fatigue may have energized Democrat voters and some independents, the fact that President Trump was not on the ballot meant that many Republicans simply did not show up. I've knocked on doors collecting petitions where people refuse to sign petition signatures for any other candidate than President Trump, indicating they will not vote for anyone but President Trump. And I think that is a problem that the Republican Party is going to have to reckon with in the years to come.
Yeah. Michael, when you look at it, what are the lessons learned for Republicans following what can only be described as a stinging defeat Tuesday night?
Yeah, it was challenging across the state when we look at especially municipal elections, even in my own area, which has been historically Republican, swinging very heavily into the Democrat side of things. The lessons learned are, number one, elections swing back and forth very significantly, and so we can't really even, I think today, predict what 2026 is going to look out. There's a lot of water that's going to have to go over the dam, as it were, in the next year to see what happens. But I think some of the issues that Jason talked about in terms of affordability, the fact that government spending has not been really reduced in any significant way creates this inflation, which creates the affordability problems, and those are some of the big challenges that I think both parties are going to have to deal with to figure out how to restore the American dream. Yeah,
Michael, back to you, and then we'll go to Jason on other ballot initiatives. But Virginia and New Jersey are close proximity to Pennsylvania, the battleground state. A lot of folks thought New Jersey would be a lot closer than it ended up being. Does that, just because of the geographical closeness to Pennsylvania, does that portend anything about next year's midterms in PA?
I'm not sure it does. I think there are some lessons to look at in New Jersey. I mean, one of the things, that Jack Ciattarelli, the Republican candidate for governor in New Jersey, came very close 4 years ago, but in that time he was running against an incumbent right after COVID. And so there was somebody that you could point to and say, that guy has made it bad for us in terms of the incumbent governor. There was no sort of specific enemy, if you will, or opponent to point to in that sort of way, since it was a new candidate on the Democrat side. Here in Pennsylvania, it's going to be what happens in the budget cycle, what Governor Shapiro is doing on the presidential race that may be a factor that would allow for something different to happen here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, of course, there's also the ballot initiatives, Jason. I want to bring up Prop 50 in California because that, to me, was probably the big headline of Tuesday night. Doesn't get the attention that the Zohran Mamdani race does or the gubernatorial contest. But is this the future of how redistricting gets done? Because now California approving this measure, which could mean 5 seats for Democrats in 2026. We're hearing states like Missouri and Florida may do the same for Republicans. Is this any way to govern in America? Your thoughts on Prop 50 and this whole redistricting mess overall?
Well, generally, I hope this is not the direction that America is going on both sides, right or the left, red or blue. I want to see normalcy in how we do this process. And historically, it's been that 10-year process. We do redistricting every 10 years. I hope we can return to some normalcy in that regard. But right now, it feels like an arms race with each side trying to raise more and more seats to get to a strengthened majority. And I do think in light of Prop 50's passage in California, the biggest winner of that is Governor Gavin Newsom, who's positioning himself as the anti-Trump candidate and probably is moving to the front of potential challengers now to run against whoever runs the Republican side for president the next time around.
Yeah, Michael, I want to ask you that same question about congressional redistricting. I know that was one of the reasons why you fought so hard for these retention elections was happening in Pennsylvania. But as Jason mentioned, this is typically a once-a-decade process, not anymore. How do we rein in this partisan gerrymandering that has such a profound effect on our politics?
Well, it's a real challenge. Those Pennsylvania Supreme Court justices that were just retained back in 2018, they intervened in the middle of an election season using a lawsuit brought by the League of Women Voters to redraw congressional district lines in a way that favors Democrats. So that was almost 10 years ago. That was in the middle, not at the normal 10-year interval. So it's been happening for a while, as gerrymandering has. But I think we do, as Jason said, I would like to see a return to the rule of law to at least do the standard every 10 years, I know, and to follow the law. Every party is going to try to skew things in their direction, but to do it in the way that is happening now is just, I think, unjust and wrong.
All right, and that'll have to be the last word this week. But if you have questions about any of the issues discussed on today's program, our election aftermath edition of Capital Connection, Michael, you have a wonderful website at PA Family Institute. Where can folks find you online?
PAFamily.org.
And stay informed in New York as well. Jason, where can folks find you?
NewYorkFamilies.org.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.